blood-red bats. He hadn't seen them in months, and here they were back again, fluttering, swooping, and swarming in the violet sky. He stared up through the tangled branches of the jungle outside Saigon and shaded his eyes. Somewhere in the basement of his mind, he knew it couldn't be Saigon. It had been nearly 15 years since he'd been there. But those damn little red sons of bitches did it every time. Confused him. Made him think it was 1975, right before the pullout, not 1989 in dirty New York streets. He shook his head violently, then stood stock still. It didn't clear. The sky remained that soft, liquid lavender. The bats, though still a viscous-looking scarlet, had blurred, vibrating into indefinable little blobs, gliding against the yellow clouds. Suddenly there was a loud screeching, a whoosh, and everything in front of him burst into a gray static, like someone was tightening a thin electric metal band around the top of his skull. He blinked, and twin 10-ton iron shutters slammed open and closed, and opened again on top of his cheekbones. Still the vision wouldn't dissipate. He nearly mouthed a silent prayer, but caught himself and stopped short. Laughing soundlessly, he closed his eyes as he sat down on a raised, hard ridge of packed earth that was like concrete beneath him. His head was down between his shoulders. A dark, warm pool of burnt sienna was all there was, lapping against the inside of his eyelids, lulling him into a false sense of security, of warmth, and simulated oblivion. God damn it, Milo. I bet you haven't heard a single solitary goddamn word I've said. The voice sounded familiar. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the dead kitten lying in the gutter between his feet. It had been white at one time, but no longer. A rainbow highlighted patina of black grease matted the fur. The closed right eye and the black blood-encrusted left socket, the straight pink nose and the open mouth of the poor pathetic creature broken down. He hardened his heart as a twinge of hopelessness opened like a sucking chest wound right in the core of his being. Wake the fuck up! What the hell are you staring at? Milo straightened in his sitting position on the curb, gazing straight ahead across the swirl of traffic. Edgy and irritated, Dave shuffled nearer, absent-mindedly scratching the day's growth of gray beard that covered his craggy face. He peered over Milo's shoulder and caught sight of the dead kitten. Ah, shit. What a shame. He clapped Milo on the back and leaned his face down close and whispered in his ear, "Oh, well, future looks bright, don't it?" Milo shrugged Dave's clammy hand off his shoulder and stood up. He turned around. The pigeons were pigeons again, flying rats, not bats. They fretted and strutted across the littered plaza out St. Margaret's, utterly oblivious to the herds of mid-afternoon pedestrians towering over them on the sidewalk. Milo raised his eyes, shielding them from the glare of the smoggy sun that was bisected by the steeple of the cathedral. That's life in the big shitty. Don't have to be that way, though. Milo looked vacantly at Dave. Dave considered himself a hard-ass, as did many other people who had the dubious fortune to know him. But he wilted and became sheepish under what he imagined to be Milo's piercing stare. Nervously, he smoothed his graying, greasy mane and then tucked both his hands in the pockets of his army camouflage jacket. Milo lit a cigarette, inhaled deeply, slowly let out the smoke. Dave decided to reopen his attack, but couldn't quite look Milo in the eye. Instead, he stared down at his friend's partially unbuttoned shirt. Have you given my proposition any more thought? Milo took another quick drag, then threw the half-smoked butt on the sidewalk and ground it under his heel. What proposition is that? He innocently teased. You know goddamn well what I'm talking about. You've been down there. Suddenly Dave realized he was shouting. He paused for a second, darting a gaze behind him, then swiveled his his head round, stepping only a few inches from Milo's face. His voice lost volume, but none of its intensity. You've been down there, in the cellar. He wagged his head towards the church. You know, down the fucking catacombs. Come on, Dave, don't exaggerate. There aren't any catacombs in St. Margaret's. Dave grimaced. All right. You know what I mean, the basement. You know what's down there. You know I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. Milo shook his head and turned away. Okay, fine. Shine me on. Go ahead. Ungrateful bastard. The last word stung, and Milo reluctantly looked into Dave's angry eyes. You shouldn't take it that way, Dave. Milo frowned, but suddenly remembered and glanced at his watch. Look, man, I gotta go. I told him Monsignor I'd only be out here for a few minutes to have a smoke. Whatever. Go back in, I swear to God. Is that what we were fighting for over in Nam? Because if it was, I should have just let Jerry blow both our goddamn heads off. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh yeah? I don't know what I'm talking about. At least I'm not sleeping in a cubbyhole on the wall that smells like incense and holy water 24/7. Man, that coma, that fucking speedball did you worse than your whole tour in Nam. You're right out of a goddamn storybook. That Monsignor is your goddamn Curia and you're his Quasimodo. Milo sighed. I'll talk to you later, dude.